Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dr. Quack podcast. I'm doing a series of top 10s this weekend. I feel like just making several of these. These are some of the things that run through my head when I go, who was the greatest at this and who was the best at that. So, without further ado, I am going to start here. A lot of times, my history has gone back to professional wrestling from roughly 1984. That's where my startness came. Thank you, Grandpa, because without you, I wouldn't get involved in professional wrestling. He always sat me down. We always watched on TV and stuff like that. So, and a lot of times it was the WWF, WWE, around that time frame. So, what I'm doing here, this is the top 10 heels, which would be bad guys for nobody that doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Top 10 heels in the WWF from 1984 to the current day. So, and I had to sit down here and I thought about this. I started this last night, and I started to think, who's going to make this list? Who legitimately would make this list? And, one of the honorable mentions, and the thing is with a heel, right? This is generally a person who has been a bad guy majority of their career. You see guys that go from heel to face being a good guy, or back and forth. And generally, this just makes me, it dilutes it. To be a true heel, I really feel like you had to have been it majority of your career. So, my honorable mention, I'm going to put on here first. This is not even in the top 10, but this is definitely one of the guys I was thinking about. And that was Macho Man Randy Savage. Yes, people love him, and they quote him quite often, the cream of the crop, But there was a time, especially early 80s, God, he was vicious. He was the monster heel. He was definitely, let's see, he had greatest match there with Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. He had, his feud with Hogan over the Mega Powers. Even before that, he was fighting guys like Bruno and Tito, Santana, there was many of them. And, he had a good career, man. He won the Intercontinental title, from Tito, held it up for a year. And then, he lost it to Steamboat, WrestleMania 3. He ended up winning the world title in the first ever tournament they had. So, definitely he was considered. Did he draw heat? Yeah. I really felt like, he belonged on this list, but he's just right at the edge. There's a lot of guys I'm going to put on here. So, number 10, I'm going to put Sergeant Slaughter. And, a lot of people go, why Sergeant Slaughter? And there's a lot of things I had to, account for. Including the heat-seeking missiles that he had. Because when he turned his back on America, and joined Saddam Hussein, he won the world championship. He went heel. He created a lot of heat. When he burned the flag, nope, he didn't burn the flag. He burned a Hulk Hogan t-shirt, which was more Americana back then than the American flag. And that made people irate. People wanted to kill him. I think during that time frame, it drew a lot more heat than a lot of people could in their lifetime. He did a great job with that. Of course, he went back babyface, but that whole era where he even partnered up with the Sheik and that was just, wow, amazing. That heat right there is something that you couldn't get. Just you had, and it was harder to deal with that heat. I've seen wrestlers, there's some in the past and there's some in the present that don't like the heat, don't like when the fans boo them, and don't want them to, try to come at them and kill them. They hate that. They'd rather be liked the whole time. But, yeah, Sergeant Slaughter, he definitely makes my number 10 there. Number 9, one of my favorite heels of all time, Ravishing Rick Rude. People had promos and he had promos. It was great. He'd be like, and all you fat, out of shape Pittsburgh sweat hogs, or wherever he was doing the show. It was great. I mean, he had Heenan behind him. He's part of the Heenan family. Ended up winning the Intercontinental title from the Ultimate Warrior. You know, of course, they healed him out on there. Thank you, Bobby. Rest in peace, both of you. But yeah, definitely, he was a strong heel, and people loved to hate him. The women loved him. The men hated him. You know, he had that sex appeal, except for Jake Roberts' wife. God, look that up. That was some lightning heat. So moving on, I'm going to go Randy Orton at number 8. Yeah, I know he's tweener sometimes. But when you think about it, when he was with Evolution, you know, he was a pretty good heel. I mean, before they ended up breaking up and everything, people used to hate him, the way he would talk about Foley. You know, their matchups were incredible. He knew how to draw heat. I mean, he had the dirtiest player in the game there. He had, you know, Ric Flair, and he had Triple H, you know, and even a young Batista, the Ruthless Aggression era, you know. So I think Randy Orton, I think he deserves to be on that list. You know, I think he, you know, knew how to piss people off. And even in real life, he knows how to piss people off. Listen to the stories if you haven't. A little thirsty today. But, yeah, definitely, he drew the heat. He knew how to get people to come in and want to see him get his ass kicked. Even recently, Randy Orton and Edge, you know, everybody's behind Edge. Everybody loves Edge. You know, and that's because Randy Orton does his job. So, there we go, continuing on. Number 7, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, I think, was, you know, and it helped that he was just so unbeatable pretty much. I mean, very few times did people actually put his shoulders to the mat clean. You know, Goldberg twice, you know. Ooh, Goldberg. Yeah, I think if you watched my previous videos, you know how I feel about him. But, I mean, Brock, dominant world champion. He had Paul Heyman that would cut the promos. You know, he would hurt people. He would beat the crap out of people. When he beat the crap out of Dominic's right there, you know, Ray's son, oh my God, you know, everybody was pissed on that. You know, he just threw him around. He had some training, thank God. But, I mean, you look at Brock. Brock was dominant, you know. Once he got with Heyman, there was no stopping him. You know, he came out there, and the best quote, I guess, with Heath Slater, that was the best one. I don't give a F about your kids. That right there, that's some lightning heat. You know, and that's what I love to see. When I'm talking about heels, that's what I love to see. I want to feel that anger, feel that rage, and I want to just see who's going to beat their ass, right? Yeah, number 6 here, I'm going to put the Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik, man. I mean, if you look at Sheiky Baby, you know, he was definitely one of the best heels out there. I mean, Sheik and Hogan, that's all I got to say there. Sheik and Backlund, you know, if you look at that whole era, right, even, you know, I know I'm talking 84, and that's a little bit before it, but even after that, he had the World Championship. He lost it to Hogan. What did he do? WrestleMania 1, he grabs Nikolai Volkov. You know, you had Iran and you had Russia, and they came together, you know, and they won the tag team titles. And he's always been the dominant heel. I mean, because he was anti-American, and at that time, that was a big, big thing. If you were anti-American, if you were Russian, if you were Iranian, like the Iron Sheik, it drew you some heat, you know. And honestly, I wish I could put him up higher, but, you know, you know, there was times that I think other ones did better. I really did. Number 5, you know, and speaking of which, this guy's current, you know, but he's been doing it a long time, and that's Triple H. Triple H knew how to drew heat as well. I mean, God. When he took over DX, when Michaels, you know, took his ball and went home and said, screw this, you know, after his match with Austin, he was injured, and, you know, Triple H took over. They were a dominant factor right there. I thought that, you know, Triple H did a great job with it. Like he would later on come out there, have feuds with The Rock, feuds with Orton. Pretty much anybody that needed to be pushed, it was definitely Triple H, as a heel there for a lot of years. So people weren't strong. He helped make them. Number 4, the dirtiest player in the game, Ric Flair. Ric Flair, I'm putting him there. He definitely with the Horsemen, you've got that whole era. But I'm talking his WWF career, and this is why he's lower on the list, because it's strictly WWF. We're not counting, his Horseman days. He drew heat. He had major heat with Hogan, even during a couple of years, and then with Evolution later on down the road, he ended up winning the World Championship out of the Royal Rumble, and he partnered up with Undertaker, and he drew heat because he had Hogan, he had Piper there, he had Savage, he was fighting, he had all the top baby faces were fighting him at that time. A lot of times, that's just why his career was short. Even with Evolution, he wasn't the major focus in that group, but he was a part of it. He was the leader as far as experience goes. That's why I couldn't put him higher. Number 3, might shock a little bit of you, but number 3, Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret as a baby was awesome, but Bret as a heel I thought was better. And you're talking even the early days with the Hart Foundation, when you had him and the Anvil, and Jimmy Hart and Danny Davis. They were a dirty tag team. It was beautiful to watch. But then later on, towards the 90s, when Bret made his more faction there, with the New Hart Foundation, you had Owen Hart in there, you had Brian Pillman, you had Davey Boy Smith, that whole family, and, the heat he drew, with him and Michael's big feud there in real life and in, the show. He refused to lose to him in Canada, and he wasn't going to lose to him over here in Michigan because the show wasn't built. The whole story behind that, the Montreal screw job, I think that's why he earns that, at number 3. Number 2, and this is all story-based here. Number 2, probably Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase, when he became the $1 Million Man, he came out there and he pissed people off. He would pay them money. He would degrade them. He would make them bounce a basketball 10 times, and then it would go up to 9, and then he'd kick the ball. He made people eat dog food and kiss his feet, and all the skits with him. I thought his heat was great, he eventually got Andre. He bought Andre, and Andre won the world title, and then it was given to him, but of course it was vacated. They didn't count his championship. He made his own belt. That's how pissed off he was, because he didn't have the WWF championship. He was pissed, and he got the championship there of his own. And that guy's a beautiful title. That $1 Million Championship is beautiful. And he had Money Inc. He won tag team titles there. Overall, I think DiBiase, if you talked about the 80s, was one of the more dominant heels. He was definitely one that could put somebody over. I thought that, he definitely belonged on that list. There's one person I believe ahead of him. That's just me. The best heel in the business from 84 on. And that's Vince McMahon. Good God. If you need to draw more heat, grab the owner, Austin McMahon. Need I say more on that? That was something that everybody tuned in every Monday night. During the Monday Night Wars, it was just incredible. You might be watching Nitro, but if you knew Austin was coming up in a segment, was coming out for an interview, or something with McMahon, you usually flipped it over, because it was one of the hottest, feuds ever, probably the hottest feud. And that's why I really feel that he's definitely number 1. Dude, he fought a one-legged man. He made Trish Stratus bark like a dog. He did a lot of stuff. He divorced his wife. His feud with his family is just incredible. But yeah, that would be my top heel, out of everybody. This is the first recording out of, I've got about 5 different shows I'm going to do today. So stick around. I'm going to pop some more out, and I'm out.